Oh shit, here we go again.
Call an ambulance, but not for me.
Stop it.
We go to the balance team.
I don't want to hear about the
balance team.
Oh no! You clearly don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in. I am not in danger.
Circuit.
I am the danger.
That's a lot of damage.
Do what you're gonna do.
Who are you talking to right now? Who is it you think you see? Do you know how much I
break the game?
I mean, even if I told you, you wouldn't believe it. Do you know what would happen if I suddenly decided to stop going into work? A
ban rate
big enough that it could be listed on the NASDAQ goes belly up. Disappears. It ceases to exist without me.
Yep, the mad lads did it. It's time for another Freya rant. With patch 11.7 bringing back Haste and Fatalis, Freya is instantly back to being uncontested the best god in the game without any changes to her actual kit. This god is just so fundamentally broken and poorly designed that it makes it so an item that would normally just be really good but probably doable in the game turns into an item that half the player base is already calling to be removed again just a week into the patch cycle. Is Haste and Fatalis a pretty broken item that causes problems outside of just Freya? Yes, but I think in those cases it could be fixed by nerfs such as cost increases and or removing the flat penetration from the item, as it existed in that state as a niche option for many years in Smite without being too broken. But even in that form, this item still just completely breaks Freya, or I guess a better way to word it is that Freya completely breaks this item. Sure, hunters getting this item back should be the problem, given they've gone without it for over 6 years, and in a way it sort of is, but even though Freya has had access to haste this whole time, the difference here is that haste and ring had an internal cooldown of 25 seconds, whereas Freya's steroids have cooldowns of 11 and 8 seconds, sometimes lower if you have any CDR. With the return of Fatalis, Freya is back to threatening to wiping your whole team on the cooldown of these abilities, rather than on the cooldown of haste and ring, which is a difference of more than 2x as much threatening uptime. Unless your Freya literally misses shots like the Trump Shooter, your whole team is going to get wiped by a Freya that has even 3 items online, never mind at full build. The funniest part of all of this though is that this patch bringing back old items clearly was not planned ahead of time at all, and was only a reaction to the negative community sentiment around the mid-season patch. This means that it was clearly a rushed out patch, and as a consequence of that, gods like Erlang Shen, King Arthur and Freya got their best items back, and Erlang got his knockup back without reverting any of the buffs over the years to these characters that were only in place to compensate for the fact that they lost these items, or Erlang's knockup in that case. If this had been a more regularly scheduled patch that had been in the works for months beforehand, they would have thought about this, but because it was so rushed, we not only have Freya with Fatalis back, but Freya with Fatalis back and several buffs like decreased banish cooldown, more base health, decreased 1 cooldown, increased passive lifesteal, among others. Sure, the game has been power creep since Season 4's removal of Haste and Fatalis, and some buffs to older gods that existed back then do make sense. But with Freya being such a historically volatile character that has literally been reworked 3 times because she refuses to not break the game, you'd expect some level of foresight to maybe revert a couple of these buffs when you give her back the item that enables her entire playstyle. On the topic of those reworks though, can this please be the final straw that makes Hi-Rez realize Freya Freya doesn't work as a character design and give her a genuine full rework going into Smite 2. It's definitely too late for her to be reworked in Smite 1, and while we don't have a full Fatalis effect in Smite 2, at least not yet, if you release this piece of shit into that game with no changes, I swear to God, Hi-Rez, I will only buy 10 skins a month instead of 20. You've tried 2 different minor reworks and both have failed so spectacularly that you straight up gave up and just gave her original kit back that still has many of the same problems. It's time to give Freya a full kit rework. This design just doesn't work. Which, by the way, shameless self-plug, I have a full video on my channel going over my concept for a Freya rework that turns her into a warrior while keeping the ranged versus melee aspects. Link below. But yeah, Freya is basically the Smite equivalent of Groundhog Day. She wakes up, is completely and utterly broken with the highest ban rate by far and one of the highest win rates among the top pick banned gods. Then she gets nerfed into the ground to the point where she's useless and irrelevant for a few months or even years, then gets some ridiculous new buff, or of course they bring back her best item without changing her at all, and she goes back to being completely broken once again. It honestly blows my mind that this design has survived more than 10 years in Smite without just being outright reworked. I know there's a small subset of fans of each god that would absolutely kick up a shitstorm if their main got reworked. Hell, I even did that a little bit with Erlang's rework, honestly. But I feel like Hi-Rez are way too scared of pissing off an extremely small amount of players to make a change that would benefit a way larger amount of players by making the game more healthy and not forcing us to play ranked just so we can ban piece of shit characters like this that completely break the game. Just fully rework her already. She's obviously a failed design that can't be fixed with balance changes and even can't be fixed with minor reworks as we've seen in the past. While I do hate Freya and all of this applies to her, this is also sort of a mini rant on Hi-Rez reluctance to make big changes and rework gods that are clearly problematic. Sure, they do get a lot of hate for all their botched reworks in the past like Erlang, Persephone and Freya's own 2 minor reworks, but that's sort of the issue. They seem so scared of doing actual full kit reworks because people will cry about it, so they end up half-assing it with a partial rework to try and please both sides, by changing the god enough to appease the players that say they're a toxic design, but not changing them so much that the players that enjoy them still recognize their core playstyle. In doing so, they just end up pissing off both sides, as not enough is changed to appease the haters, and they very often ruin the core of what made the god fun to enjoyers, like with Persephone and Erlang. I know I just went on a lengthy rant about how reworks tend to turn out poorly while also trying to make the argument that Hi-Rez should do more reworks, but my main point here is that they should do more ambitious full kit reworks to problem gods, rather than trying to please both sides with a minor rework. Will it piss off a small portion of the player base that made those gods? Sure. Will they potentially even leave the game because their only god is now completely different? Maybe. But it would still be an overall benefit to the game if these toxic failed designs aren't allowed to consistently break the game on such a regular basis. Hell, the old mains of the god might even enjoy the new kit, you never know. Again, there's likely no time left in Smite 1 for any of these major kit reworks, but I hope that as we see some of these more problematic gods like Freya make the transition to Smite 2, they can get something more than we've seen so far in terms of kit changes for that game. These gods don't need a couple of extra mechanics added to keep them fun, they need a complete re-evaluation of their core design philosophy, and Freya, being the most reworked god that is still breaking the game to this day, is the best example of that.